Welcome, everybody. It is the first day of Wimbledon. That's why I've got to have the green on with the Tennis Con 8 shirt. And we got Sam Jones from Tennis Express. Very excited to be with you guys here on the first day of Wimbledon. So we're going to talk a little bit of Wimbledon, but we're also going to talk about the gear that they're gearing up with that makes them hit all those amazing serves and forehands and drop volleys. And you're also going to have a big reveal on a racket tonight too, Sam. So how are you doing out there?
I'm doing great. Happy Wimbledon, everybody. Remember, it's Wimbledon with a D, not a T. It's at Wimbledon. Very important distinction out there. But yeah, it's really excited to be here with you, Pete, talking about a little bit of Wimbledon and of course, gear, rackets, and string is a big passion of mine. And hopefully a lot of viewers out there can learn something and can apply it in their own game or in their own tennis bag with their gear.
Yeah. We got Peter. He is always on these live streams. Back again from New Jersey. Peter, I grew up playing Middle States tennis in New Jersey.
Nice.
Have I ever told you about my infamous picture I have? Or I don't even know where it's located anymore. But when I was number one in New Jersey, we had Jane Ehrenberg was number one in the 14s, and Lyle and Eric Menendez were number one in the 16s and 18s. Do you remember that story?
Oh yeah.
So I'm in a picture with my little trophy next to Lyle and Eric. Actually, a tragic story, but we won't go too much into that. Anyway, we got Scott and Sharon on here. Welcome, everybody. As you're coming in, why don't you tell us who you think is going to win Wimbledon on the men's and the women's side? Sam and I are going to talk a little bit of Wimbledon right now before we get into the gear and who we kind of are looking at and liking. So Sam, what did you think of the first day so far that you saw and scores you saw come on in? What are some of the things that you're looking at this year's Wimbledon?
So I do think it's kind of crazy to say, but no Nadal at Wimbledon. Djokovic is here with the knee brace. I believe Francis Tiafoe also with a knee brace. So it's very interesting. And Novak's trying to get ready for the Olympics. I don't know. Interesting decision for me to try to get ready after that. I believe it was a surgery to be ready for Wimbledon. Like I think that's asking a lot. The guy's done a lot of incredible things, but I don't know. I think the path to the title is going to go through Sinner or Alcaraz. I think those two have elevated on the men's side. I think their best is better than everybody else, and I'm hoping we get a lot more Sinner Alcaraz matches down the road because those two guys. I mean, they hit incredibly well, but it's the movement too, right? I mean, Sinner, he treats the tennis court like a ski slope. I mean, the guy's skiing all over the place, sliding all over the place. So, really, really exciting stuff today. And it looked like things kind of held to form today. Both of those guys got through. So, and then I'm really hopeful for Coco Gauff on the women's side.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there, Sam. I like your kind of picks. Hard to argue with. We have Sinner and Rabakina. I think that's a Rabakina. That's how you say her name, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a solid pick right there. We got Alcaraz and Sinner would meet in the semis, which is kind of crazy. Sinner and Alcaraz final. So maybe that's not possible. Yeah, go
Rabakina's got
Coco.
that huge serve, right? She serves big time. She's a great grass court player.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. What do you guys think? I'd like everybody to just kind of comment what you think about Djokovic playing Wimbledon. I mean, first of all, his performance at the French Open, he didn't win this year, but it was very heroic. I mean, the matches he came back in were incredible. And then to have it where his knee gets hurt, he goes under surgery to come back and play on grass where everybody slips and slides. But I mean, I can picture Djokovic in my head slipping and sliding first week all the time. He falls all the time on that stuff. I think it's like a little desperate. Like maybe he feels like if I'm not in a Grand Slam tournament, I'm really running out of chances here. And I don't know. I thought it was not a good idea. Scott says it's too early.
Don't you think too, Pete, that it it's almost like he has to know now. Like, have we ever talked about Djokovic as an injury concern? I mean, he's always been remarkably healthy, and I think it's amazing. This time last year, he almost won the calendar slam if he'd have won that Wimbledon final, and how quickly things change. It seems like Sinner and Alcaraz are hungry and better, getting better and better. And Novak's a little dinged up with a knee. You kind of wonder if he's thinking, I don't know how many more shots at Wimbledon or at more Grand Slams he's going to have. And I'm kind of with you. I don't know that the urgency was necessary for Wimbledon, but also maybe who knows, maybe he's already made some plans regarding the rest of his career, what he wants to do, how long he wants to play. I think we've gotten so used to these guys, him, Federer, and Nadal being around for 20 plus years. Like at some point it does have to end. These guys are going to stop. So it's certainly not normal for a guy in his late 30s who's I'm going to have MCL surgery and then go play top level Grand Slam tennis.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Djokovic, if he can get healthy, can still get one or two more. I don't think it's like you write him off and he can't win anymore. But I think the days of domination are over. And I think finally, after literally decades, we're now going to start to see in the winner's circle new faces, like Sinner, like Alcaraz. Maybe Sissy Paz can finally win one, and players like that. So finally, the new crop is here. They're playing amazing, and I think just in time because like Sinner and Alcaraz, they're just two really likable people, and I think they're legit champions. Like
Hmm.
they have that it factor. They are winners for sure. So, yeah. But we have somebody, Daniel, saying, look, he's no human. He's a $100 million man. He's definitely shown that before. He's definitely shown that before. Oh, Tommy Paul, my favorite American
Yeah.
player. Good call on that.
Tommy Paul's played some good grass court tennis.
Yeah.
And I think really in the last 2 or 3 years, I did not see his ranking doing what it's doing, but he's played some really good matches in the Grand Slams, and I gotta think you have to include him in the mix. I know
Yeah.
Taylor Fritz and Francis get a lion's share of the publicity, but I think Tommy Paul almost quietly has really improved and is pretty solid on every surface. I think
Just,
a former Roland Garros Junior champion
oh,
too,
yeah. Yeah.
so he can play on the dirt too.
Oh, yeah. And he just won that grass court tournament last week. And, really, if you look at this year, um, almost going back probably 8 or 9 months, Tommy Paul has been the best American player we've had.
For sure.
Ben Shelton, you would think be awesome on grass. He's in big trouble today, down 2-1. On the women's side, we had Coco coming in strong. That must have felt good because last year she
Right.
lost first round to Kennan. She played
Oh,
another American this year, won easy. Osaka, you got to give her a lot of credit. She's grinding her way back on the tour and is back in the top 100, which she posted on her Instagram. Kind of cool that she's proud of that accomplishment. She won in three.
hmm.
And then, we got to talk about Swiatek. I mean, dominating on the clay. Can she pull her game over? And does that going to translate on the grass? How do you think she can do this year on the grass? And then we'll get into some tech, about the gear.
Something so interesting about Swiatek is she clearly believes in her game on hard court. She clearly believes in her game on
Oh,
courts too.
lost
I
him.
mean, I'm here. I'm here.
Mm-mm.
I was being censored. Um, she is so confident on the clay and is a very accomplished hard court player. It just seems for whatever reason she has not gotten that full head of steam on the grass. I do think the players in the past, even on hard court, that have given her trouble. One of them withdrew today. Sabalenka, huge game, big hitter. I think it was a shoulder injury. No surprise, really. We'll see how she swings at the ball, but I think Swiatek. I think maybe she might be a little intimidated by some of the bigger hitters that can finish points quickly. And I think on the grass, even though she still moves very well, I think it's harder for her to defend and then counterattack on the grass. I think some of the bigger hitters, if they hit an effective first serve and attack that first ball, I think it's difficult for Swiatek to sort of wrestle victory from the jaws of defeat like she does. She resets so many points on those clay courts.
Mm.
She's in trouble. She's in trouble, and she just, her opponent's got to run 20 sidelines to win a point. Sometimes, it's just so much effort. And I think the other players too, when they see her name on the draw on a grass court, they feel like they've got a puncher's chance. Whereas on a hard court or especially a clay court, it's uphill battle for sure.
That is good stuff. Peter Astor said it's good reasoning. I thought that was very well. Great analysis there. Alcaraz versus Sinner men's final, Iga versus Coco. That'd be pretty good. And I would think on grass, maybe Coco might have a bit of an advantage. I mean, she got slaughtered on the clay first. This is what I
Yeah,
texted that. She might want some revenge, and the grass might be a good place to do it.
right.
Guys, as you're tuning in, first of all, we got a nice little crowd now, which is great. We got an active chat, so thank you guys so much for being active. Continue to be active. Get your questions ready as far as when it comes to gear and especially strings and rackets, because it can make a big difference in how you play. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about Wimbledon gear and strings, and are they going to be stringing the racket different on the grass as opposed to the clay, and what would be the differences? What would they tend to do? Go tighter, looser? Would they change an actual blend of their string? What happens between the clay court and the grass court when it comes to their rackets? What adjustments do they make?
Well, it's a good question. And the thing I will say is each individual player is a little bit different. I think one of the big gear things that I've noticed for the last 15, 20 years is Nadal at every tournament, he strings his racket the exact same tension. Like he always uses the same tension, regardless of day, night, surface. And I think that's so interesting. But I heard another top player, Arthur Rinderknecht from France. He actually played at Texas, played some college tennis at Texas A&M, and he said he always strings at the same tension because he doesn't want to be thinking, oh, well, I should have gone looser, or I should have used, I should have gone with my gut and done this. He tries to keep the tension the same so that he knows it's him that has to make the adjustments. And, the answers kind of have to come within, which I think is a very interesting kind of a Zen outlook. But it certainly comes from a place of, I don't want to be thinking too much outside of what's going on inside the lines. And I think, you got to respect that, kind of mentality. I think what you'll see, most players will not change their string tension or change their string or their string gauge. I do think that you're going to see a lot of players shifting from the clay. They're going to lock in on a tension, a week and a half, maybe the week before the tournament. Get it locked in. Guys like Federer, they would come to the court with a few different tensions in their bag. I don't know that most players really do that anymore. I you also have to realize not everybody is Federer and gets the rackets restrung every day. Some of these pros that are 100, 120 in the world, they probably don't want to lose prize money for spending all that money getting their rackets restrung. So it's a practical matter too, but. I think in general, Pete, the age old thing has been you string the racket tighter to get a little bit more control. You string a little bit looser to get the ball a little bit more pop off the string bed, a little more slingshot, if that makes sense. I mean, a huge trend in the pro game lately has just been the tensions just going down. I mean, I remember, was it Borg? You might know, but Borg was like 70 pounds
Yeah,
in a wood racket about the size of my head. Oh, look, there's a heart. So pretty.
I think when
Um,
you do stuff close to you, stuff happens somehow on your end. I don't know what you did, but
I'm so powerful.
I guess
Um,
so.
but yeah, so I think now, like I think Francis Tiafo has been in the 40-pound tension range. Jack Sock no longer playing on tour, but he was in that range too, like maybe high 30s, low 40s. And I think something just for all the tennis players out there, they're using a pretty stiff string. You hear the term like polyester monofilament strings, and the material is really stiff. So it's not like they're playing 40 pounds with super stretchy, soft, natural gut, which would just, launch into the atmosphere. So these strings are really stiff, but I think what the pros are finding is that because the strings are so stiff, you don't need to string them that tight to still get
Hmm.
control. And good Lord, we know they've got some racket head speed out there. So um, yeah, I mean, I think it's wild. I don't know if you've ever dabbled in tensions that low, Pete. If you've ever, I mean, I think when I was teaching tennis, I might string a racket like that if I was feeding a lot of balls,
Yeah.
just to try to, okay, well, I'm not going to be actually playing points and stuff. But was it Manarino that was like 17 pounds or
He's like
something like that?
17 pounds. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to have just incredible feel and smooth hands to be able to control the ball off your rack. And you see his strokes too, and it kind of makes sense. They're so compact, and there's not really any wasted effort, and but it works for him.
Yeah.
Tension is such a personal thing. And though the trend is lower, you're still going to see guys like mid 50s, almost 60 pounds. It's kind of all over the map. And I really think it sort of goes back to, Pete, if you're playing a match at a junior tournament and you say, I'm going to try this string, and then you dominate and you win that tournament, you're sort of locked into that string for a while, and you're locked into that tension for a while. And I think some of these juniors or some of these pros, we forget they were that 14-year-old, 15-year-old junior, and maybe they tried something and really liked it. And, here they are on the biggest courts in the world, like, well, I don't really want to change that. It's
Yeah.
really, really working for me. So.
Yeah, yeah, and the Tao of the script. We got a couple questions here, so I don't want to ignore them. The first one is, have you tried Restring Zero or Restring Sync strings? First of all, have you tried them? Do you know about them, and how do they play? What are they?
So I have not tried Restring Zero. I'm familiar with the strings. I believe they're completely made of recycled materials, and it might be made of just recycled strings. Um, I love the concept as somebody who has a stringing machine and cuts strings out of rackets, and I just see the waste paper basket full of the jumble of strings that have been cut out of rackets. There is a lot of waste there. I've tried a few others. What's the one? Oh, I don't know. Is that the Gamma string, or is that a different one? There's a few different companies that are dabbling in this right now, and I think the concept is really cool. I think the goal is really cool. I think it's a again, kind of a personal thing. It's a what you want to use. Multi-filament strings, I think, are probably best for most of the population, and that seems to be where we're seeing some of these. Luxilon, one of the premier string brands in the world. I think they've got 3 polyester strings now. Eco Power, Eco Spin, and Eco Rough. And I believe Eco Spin is biodegradable as well, which is a very interesting wrinkle. Now it might be 100 years, it might be 500 years. But yeah, the story is very interesting. The brands maybe trying to be a little bit more green. I think by and large for most tennis players, you want something that you can be confident with.
Hmm.
But if it kind of speaks to you and you want, hey, I play tennis, I want it to be a little bit more sustainable, as and reduce my footprint as much as I can. It's cool to see the brands kind of embracing that and trying to push forward with a little more focus on sustainability.
Hmm. Yeah. Tennis Con 8 is going to be recyclable this year. You can watch it as many times as you want when you get your lifetime access pass. So anyway, Lisa, who's awesome, she's come to my camp and she just is always on our live stream. She's a totally obsessed tennis member as well. And she goes, what are your suggestions for rackets and stringing for tennis elbow, which I'm sure a lot of people want to know. By the way, guys, if you have equipment questions tonight, just bring it, because the more we have questions from you guys rather than talk about what the pros are using, it's going to help everybody out there who's playing on, at your level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think tennis elbow is a tough one. and Pete, I know you know this, but it can come from a technical issue. It can come from overuse. It can certainly be tennis elbow can certainly be you know uh, gained from maybe using a racket that's a little too light. The biggest thing, kind of guidance I can give, is string tension lower than you think you need to. I think players are surprised. Oh, well, if I normally string at 55 pounds, oh, well, why don't you knock it down to 51? Oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to keep the ball in the court. It's going to be, and there's no way. And, you can lose 5 pounds on your tension and you can still keep the ball in the court. This is it might seem like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But you'll be surprised how well you can control the ball still, even knocking 5, 6, 7 pounds off of your string tension. As far as specific strings, TGV by Technofiber is really designed for this reason. It's designed to take the stress off of tender wrist, tender elbow. It's a soft multi-filament string from the pioneers of the multi-filament string, Technofiber. It's not a cheap string, but it is super premium product. If you want the absolute softest, I think they have it in a 17 or 18 gauge. So it's very thin, very soft, very comfortable. Certainly a nice string for those out there with tennis elbow and sore tendons. As far as rackets, um, I am not a huge proponent of a frequent tennis player using a racket that's less than 10 ounces. I think you think, okay, lighter, I can swing it faster, you know, that's better, right? That's going to mean more power. And I think sometimes lighter and you're swinging it fast, but then there's really no mass to sort of help the contact, really get you that drive through the ball that you're looking for. So I'm not saying you need to go heavy, but I think 10 ounces is a really nice, kind of, you could go a little bit above, you could go a little bit below. And then one metric that I still think matters quite a bit as far as rackets go is pay attention to that stiffness rating. You'll see rackets, range from, I guess the average probably now is in between 60 and 70. And basically what that is, guys, is it's just a measurement of the flex of the racket from grip to tip, right? So I'll do it on my head like this. So it looks like that. That's not very scientific, but you get the idea. And so what that flex means is just ball hits the strings. How much does the racket flex? How much does it give? If it's very stiff, like 72, 73, there are less rackets that stiff made now than the racket. Think rigid. There's almost no deformation, which means increased power, but also it can increase the fatigue on the elbow too. Um, Now, where I'm at in my tennis journey is I'm going to be 42 in November, and what I've come to learn is I really appreciate a racket that has a softer flex. So I'm down around 60, 62. For me, it's just a lot of flex, and I can use that flex of a racket and I don't worry about the string being too stiff. It just sort of allows me to play and stay healthy and not worry about my arm being an issue. As far as tension, I'm down around 50. I don't really string above 50 pounds anymore, which is crazy because I know, Pete, you and I have talked about when I was in juniors, 58 or 60 pounds on
Mm.
everything. And the world and different string materials has certainly jumped up. Let's see what this question is.
Yeah, good question.
Separate long and cross strings, 100 versus 102. Um,
Let's just read the whole question so everybody knows what we're talking about.
yeah,
What
sure.
is your opinion on stringing with separate long and cross strings? Maybe explain what he or she mean. Yeah, it's Bobby. So what does Bobby mean by that? Also, recommendations for tensions with a 100, and this is, I think we're talking about the size of the racket versus a 102 and a 104. So maybe go through one by one to kind of explain what everything is, because maybe not everybody gets what this question means, and then what your opinion is.
For sure. I think what Bobby's referring to is like hybrids, where you're using two different sets of string. For the main strings, your up and downs right here, and then for your cross strings. I would say it's here to stay. What players have kind of figured out, kind of made famous by Federer, I guess, but he loved the control and the spin of the Luxilon ALU power in the cross strings, and he still preferred sort of that classic powerful feel of the natural gut in the main strings. And so it's kind of a way to get the best of both worlds. You're getting more control from the poly, but the same, comfort and arm friendliness from that softer string. I think a trend that we've been seeing, well, I'll go straight to the question. As far as tension range for 100 versus 102, 104, it all depends on why you're making that change. If you're trying to go to a racket that's bigger from a 100 to a 102 or a 104, I'd keep your tension the same and give it a good apples to apples. Hey, do I like this racket? Is it, more powerful? And then I think if you like that larger head size, and then is the time to maybe, okay, well, I did like the larger head size. It's a little more forgiving. Maybe I'll go up a couple of pounds on the tension just to, sort of give myself a little bit more control. But I think sometimes with rackets and gear, we're changing too many things at a time, Pete. So, oh my gosh, my elbow hurts. I need to change my racket and my string and my grip size and my overgrip and my, pregame routine. Is like, hey, let's start with just one thing. Let's change one variable, and then if who knows, maybe you restring your racket and it just needed to be restrung at the same tension and everything's groovy. You're good to go. Sometimes it might seem like I got to fix 10 things and it might just be one thing. So be wary of, oh, I'm going to change this to this head size and I got to change my tension too. Well, maybe start with the same tension that you've got, keep that as the constant, and then if you decide you really do like that larger head size and you want a little more control, that's sort of the time to tinker a little bit. Sometimes I think tinkering is good, but I don't think it's ever good to tinker with everything, because then you don't really learn what change is really helping you.
That's good. Here's a good one, Gary. And if I am correct, I think out of nowhere, and the guy saying it's kind of weird. Andy Murray is pretty much saying this is it. Wimbledon might even be the last one. I know he's really hurting now, so he's kind of going into matches pretty much on his last legs, literally. But he switched his racket right out of nowhere. He switched from a head to a Yannick. So um, what do you think about that? About first of all, this Andy Murray? Why do you think he switched? Do you know anything about that? And it does seem like Yonex is pretty hot. Why do so many players seem to like Yonex? What's so good about those rackets?
So Yonex has made a tremendous investment in our world ranked junior players. They're really pushing the dollars in, and they're trying to recruit young players. And I think a lot of your viewers out there know, like, they make incredible products. The quality control, their performance rackets are made in Japan, a very meticulous process. Their quality control from one racket to the next is kind of second to none in the industry. As far as Murray, um, I think, and I mean no disrespect, I think a lot of times when a player has played with a racket for almost their whole career, and the results start to dip, I think they're looking for something. I think they're trying to find, it might even just be confidence. They're trying to find a wrinkle, something that they can, um, throw at him, like a baseball hitter who's in a slump. Like maybe he uses his teammate's bat, or ties his left shoelace a little looser or something, just to try to maybe break up some of the momentum or monotony that's not working in their favor. Now, the interesting thing about the Murray switch is that you went from a pretty control oriented, thin beam, very old school, heavier racket to one of the more user-friendly, powerful frames on the market in the E-Zone 100. The thing I've always loved about the Yonex models is the head shape. It's sort of that rectangle as opposed to kind of the traditional oval. And even on the smaller head sizes of the Yonex frames, the isometric head, it almost seems to play bigger. So if you've got a 95 in Yonex, it almost plays more like a 98 or a 99. You know, if you've got a 98 in Yonex, it almost plays more like a 100. So it plays a little more forgiving than the head size kind of would indicate. And that being said, I mean, you've seen Murray, his racket, the Yonex that he's using is, you can see the lead tape visible. Like he has obviously added a tremendous amount of weight to sort of make it comparable to his head frame. But I'm all for. Uh, I sort of feel like Murray, Djokovic, Nadal, Federer. Those guys have sort of, do whatever you want to do, man. If it keeps you around and you're finding some success, like I certainly want. You know, I'm all for it. I mean, you know, Pete Sampras famously said, Pete, that he wishes he had tried more new rackets towards the end of his career, and he was so locked into just, I think, the, you know, Pro Staff 85 from, you know, the late, or I guess early 80s, the racket came out, and he did not switch. And then he
Hmm.
retired and started using all these different frames, and he's like, man, this is kind of awesome. So I think that's a very long-winded answer. But Yonex is a very quality company. And the interesting thing, and it seems to have kind of flipped a little bit, in the 90s, early aughts, Yonex was so dominant among the WTA tour, the female players, and now it almost seems like their momentum is more on the ATP side. That there's just a lot more players playing those frames, but they're incredibly solid frames. And I think Murray is looking for more finishing power. I think he's trying to play shorter points. So from that standpoint, the racket switch from the thin beam, very control oriented head frame to the, you know, larger head size, more powerful Yonex, like it makes a lot of sense to me. Kind of the proof will be in the pudding, and I hope he gets the Wimbledon final run that he deserves, because he's been incredibly entertaining at that tournament and throughout his career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you kind of nail on the head as you're saying that. It reminded me of Federer when he was playing almost, he played almost his entire career with a racket kind of similar to Sampras. And
Right,
then he went up to the 98 and it did. Now he had more time, right? Because Federer wasn't close to retiring. I mean, Murray has
right.
literally said, this is it. Federer played for many more years, but it gave him his career almost like a second life. You know, I don't know if he get that should get full credit, but certainly when he went to the 98 uh, size, I think he was down at, like, what was he at? Was he at 90 or 95? Whatever he was at, it was
I,
small
I
compared to
think
everybody else.
I think according to Wilson, he did change. He was playing 85 just like Sampras. And I think he did go to 90. I think he did change. I mean, 85 to 90, right? It's still, that's still pretty brutal. But yeah, the big switch was from 90 to 97.
Yeah.
And I think he won three more majors after that.
Yeah, it's definitely he played better after it. So maybe Murray can get a little more juice. He definitely needs some with all these big hitters. Now, here's one thing. What is this racket that we're talking about where he's saying, is this really the unicorn of rackets? I don't know the racket. Can you talk
So
about that?
I'm familiar with it. I've never played with it. I know for a while they were only available in Japan. It's got a user friendly spec. I think there's some good marketing behind these frames too. I think they're probably great frames. Again, I mentioned it earlier. Yonex has very good quality control. I think that the inline Yonex models, the VCore, the Percept, the E-Zone, I think they're incredible rackets. I don't believe that the Regna is, you know, the racket that comes out of the, you know, that the genie gives you out of the lamp that's going to solve all your problems. I don't think that. I think it's a really cool marketing. I think the logos on it is very, very fancy. It's so, Pete, I don't know if you're familiar, but it's a black racket, very understated branding, and it's sort of like, I'd almost call it like a limited run of a car that you wanted or
Mm,
something, you know. And
mm.
so it's in message board community. You know, they're out there, they're online, they're on, you know, eBay. Some retailers have them for a little while and then they're gone.
Mm.
But yeah, you know, Yonex makes incredible brands, and those are sleek looking. Again, I haven't hit them, but you know, obviously, if you're a collector and you're into sort of finding the gear that people don't have, then that the Regna's a good option. But
So you
Yonex
pronounce it
makes,
Yonex Regna. That's how it's pronounced.
I
So
think so.
so
I think
guys, go
so.
out there and maybe one night you'll get one available. That's always good marketing, right? When you kind of like give it and it's secretive and then you take it away. Like
Right.
that's kind of
You,
smart.
in order to bring it back, you got to take it away, right? That's
Yeah,
the age old
absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have, first of all, I just want to say thank you guys so much for being such an amazing active group, because we got a bunch of questions still to go here. We're going to try and get to as many of them as possible. And, you guys hanging out with us on a Monday night, we love it. We appreciate you. Thank you. All right, here we go. Gary says, how long does the soft polystring last? Good questions.
Okay.
If you play 3 times a week.
Polyester strings are tough. If you want the strings to perform the way they felt when you first picked up the racket from the stringer, I would say you're talking about 20 to 30 hours on court. Depending on the type of strokes that you have, obviously I can't see how you hit the ball. If you are really hard on strings, you have to assume that that usable life is shorter than that. Polyester is here to stay. There's no doubt about it, but the string properties do not last until the string breaks. Okay, so basically, if you're using polyester strings until they break, and it's 3, 4, 5 weeks, you probably need to cut them out and restring, and it might cost more, but your performance and the result, like I liken it to changing your oil in your car. Um, you know, at first you don't really notice if you haven't changed the oil in the car, but over the
Mm,
life of the car, if you change the oil in the car, it's better taken care of. Things run smoother. It's really important. So I wouldn't just say, oh, use a soft polyester because it's soft and then use it until it breaks. I would still say, you know, 18 to 25 hours is probably your ideal life and your best, you know, your best performance. And then after that, as that string tension really kind of comes out of it, you're gonna struggle to create that same feel that you had right off the stringer.
hmm Good stuff. Here's a good one. And, actually, remember a couple of years ago, I went on a racket journey with Tennis Express. Thank you so much. I'm picking the Dunlop. And, but one of them was the Wilson Clash. And this is an interesting comment because I kind of felt the same way. Please talk about racket bounce. I tried the Wilson Clash 100 and could slam down serves with it. Couldn't hit a ground stroke to save my life with it though. What have you heard about that? Does that make sense? And why would that happen to somebody? What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just talk about balance for a little bit. Balance, and this isn't going to be super precise, but basically it's like, is the head really heavy, right? Where the head's dipping, you know, it's gonna, if you got it right here, if the head goes like this, the head's really heavy, right? There's more weight up here. And if the handle's really heavy, like kind of the case is here, the weight is more in the handle. Okay, so let's talk about two things here. If you use a very heavy racket, the odds are that the balance is very head light, meaning that most of the weight is in the handle. So common sense would say very head light rackets need to be heavy overall, but they're incredibly easy to swing for how heavy they are. If that makes sense. As far as kind of the trend that you see is, as a racket gets more to even balance or more to head heavy, those rackets overall are lighter in weight. And the concept being, if you've got a racket that's lighter and it's super head light, you don't really have a lot of punching power, because all the weights in the handle, and if it's a 10-ounce racket and all the weights in the handle, well, even your biggest forehand, swing is not really going to penetrate the court the way that you'd like.
Hmm.
Um, I think what the manufacturers have really kind of settled on, and I'm seeing it a lot, is that racket that is around 10.6 ounces unstrung, and it's about 4 points head light. So it's not, some of the older school rackets are, 7 points, 9 points head light. Nowadays, there's more and more 4 points headlight, 3 points headlight, and the rackets are a little lighter. 10.4, 10.6 ounces unstrung, and then they're sort of trying to find that balance of stability, power, and control, but still maintaining the maneuverability. As far as the different, I can kill the serve with the clash, but the ground strokes just don't feel right. I think a lot of that is a very personal thing. Sometimes as tennis players, I think we all sort of feel like we're as good as our last shot, or when I hit balls now, I feel like, man, I feel like I couldn't return. I couldn't return with my forehand with this racket, or I couldn't return, and I think when it gets down to it, you look inside and it's kind of about you. Like, you can return with any racket. It's just, maybe something that gets stuck a craw in your brain and you're not so sure. The only thing I could think of with the Clash without seeing anything is it's not a heavy frame, and it's not a particularly stable frame. And so maybe, like, as far as ground strokes go, you're just not able to really dial in because you don't feel that control and stability and impact. Whereas on the serve, that lightweight might feel incredibly mobile and easy to really stretch the racket head up and kind of get that wrist pronation that you're looking for. Um, on the ground strokes, that racket's a very comfortable frame, but it's not designed to be, super stable, rock solid from the back of the court.
Good stuff. All right, we got Marion Yvonne, and first of all, she has check her out on Instagram with her tennis towels. They're really awesome.
Cool.
She makes them for our camps, and yeah, you guys might Tennis Express might want to do some tennis towel tips with Mariana Vaughn. She's
I'll pass it along.
yeah, like Mariana. Put your comment. What I forget what your handle is on Instagram. Put that in the chat. Anyway, this is a good question though, because what about, and right now, hot Atlanta is hot. Like, it is steaming hot out here. So what should we do with our strings? Because I definitely feel that tensions play much different in the cold, in the heat. What do you do when it gets warmer and warmer? What in general should you do with your string tension, if anything?
So in the heat, I'd go tighter. I know there's a lot of club players that'll restring their racket before the spring season, and they'll restring their racket before the fall season. Um, I am an advocate for let's restring for the summer as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think tighter. Okay, the heat. I feel like the ball goes faster. It flies more. This is my opinion. I haven't seen. You know. Some fancy data or shot spot or anything to dictate this, but it just seems to make sense that in the heat things move faster. And I do feel like I'm a baseball fan. I do feel like they say in the heat the ball carries more. Like the Rangers, who just won the World Series, they used to play outdoors, and they could never pitch because the ball would catch the heat in the summertime and it would just go forever. So you could never get any good pitchers to come to play for Texas. And then they get a dome, and then they win the World Series. But yeah, so I would go tighter. Doesn't have to be 5, 10 pounds tighter, but I think maybe 2, 3 pounds. And if you're somebody that plays a lot in the summer and you only have ever restrung in the fall and in the spring, you could probably just restring your racket at the tension that you like for the summer, and you'd still be good to go. If you're really playing a lot, I think it'd be worth it to restring it and bump that tension up a couple of pounds, because you're right, Pete. Just like in Atlanta, it is hot here in Texas as well.
Texas is brutal. The most brutal state I've ever been to with weather. Okay. We have another good one, and I think this might be a good time. You've kind of toyed with us with a racket that you brought in and out of the frame. This might be a good time to talk about this because Lou wants to know what are some new rackets that are good for us older flat hitters. And we were talking about this a little bit before we came live. So might be a good time to introduce what racket you have and how that plays. And that might be perfect for Lou.
Lou, you might be an audience plant. Are you an audience plant?
Lou is not.
All right, so really excited. Tennis Express has worked with Head, and we're bringing this Radical MP
Hold on, Sam.
special.
I'm going to
Oh,
put you in the solo layout so
oh,
people
okay,
can really see the racket. So I'm not
okay,
gone anywhere. I just don't want to
okay.
freak you out.
Fair enough.
You're
All right, so this is from Head. It's a Radical MP, and this model came out in 2023, but we're excited at Tennis Express. We are the only retailer with the 18 by 20 string pattern. This is perfect for Lou's question. He's a flatter, maybe old school hitter. Dent string patterns are really nice, a lot of precision and control for players that maybe hit more just through the back of the ball and they don't have kind of that as modern, Alcaraz buggy whip finish, Nadal finish. Another underrated thing about the dent string pattern racket is just your strings will last longer in these rackets, even if it's a multi-filament or natural gut, it'll hold tension better. And while a lot of 18 by 20 string pattern rackets on the market have a bit more weight and heft, and they can be a little tough to use, the Radical MP is still 10.6 ounces. Forgiving swing weight, forgiving balance. Flex is not too stiff, not too flexible. So we're excited to bring this to our customers. The 1820, it's kind of we're sort of saying radical control from the Radical family, and it's the first dense pattern 18 by 20 radical from Head in over a decade. So again, really excited to bring that to our customers. The rackets are on the way to the warehouse now. They're going to be shipping sometime next week. So a really cool opportunity for fans of the Head Radical that wanted a little bit more precision, or players like Lou that hit the ball a little bit flatter and they want that direct contact and every amount of precision that they can get from a racket.
I'm
So
back.
yeah, that's the Head Radical MP 1820. Same playing specifications as the inline Radical with the 16 by 19 pattern, but this one's got that denser string pattern for more control. And again, as much as we all want to hit like Nadal, we all didn't learn the game that way, and some of us hit the ball a little bit flatter. As you can tell, I'm talking about myself too there. And so yeah, it's just kind of a nice option and dense string pattern, a little bit more control, better string durability. The thing I'd use too is just predictable. The ball flight's very predictable, and if you're not a big top spin hitter, that can really come in handy.
Hmm. I just first of all, Mariana Vaughn, tennis towel tips. Go
Got it.
check
I'm
go check it out on Instagram.
I'm writing
Sam,
it
go
down right
check it
now.
out. Yes, write it down. It's really cool. And then also, guys, you guys go check it out. But I just want to again thank you guys. This is such a great chat tonight. You guys are on it. I don't know if you could hear me because I had the mic away. Did everybody hear what I was saying? I was just saying, you guys are awesome. I mean, this is a great chat. You guys are really enjoying this. I'm enjoying it. And then, I think Peter Astor here has a great question. It'd be cool. We like have everybody come chime in on this one, everybody who's watching it. But Sam and I will talk about it because I definitely have my feelings about it. And I want to see Sam, who works at Tennis Express, what his feelings are. Says the elephant in the room question is, does the racket and string choices greatly affect your play, or is it just talk? Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Um, I'll go first. Okay, you need three things to play tennis. You need a racket, you need tennis balls, and you need string, right? And maybe you'd say four, you need some kind of shoes, some kind of footwear. I think when you're starting out, I I I want to hedge maybe a little bit. I think when you're starting out, get to the court, try tennis, pick up any racket, just try it. give it a shot. I think as you play, and if you get the bug and you're addicted or you want to, improve your forehand, or I really enjoy tennis, I just want to get to where I can have a rally. I think as you improve and as you play more tennis, I think you sort of learn and figure out what it is that you're wanting from your equipment. And there's a lot of great tennis coaches out there, teaching pros that can help with that. But a lot of it sort of gets down to, well, all things being equal, Pete, I love it. Like I explained earlier, I'd love a racket that I feel so confident that my elbow is protected. That is my number one thing that I'm looking for in equipment. And the same applies for string. Um, so for me, I know after years and years of playing tennis, that's what I'm looking for. So I would say, to answer this question, it does affect my play and it does affect my confidence level on the court. I think if you're starting out, and this happens in everything, the guy who buys a set of golf clubs and he's shooting 85, and then he buys another set and he's shooting 85, and he buys another set and he's shooting 85. I still think it comes down to personal journey, progression, improvement, working on your skills. You're the bus driver on this, the player is. So it's still going to take effort on the player's part. But I do think that the equipment, especially if you've really taken to tennis and you're improving, I do think it can make a difference. Now, you know, one copolyester string to another copolyester string, or using the Turner grip versus the white Wilson Pro overgrip, maybe some of that style, more style, and then you get into what makes you feel good. If you're confident with the head radical and you have been for 20 years, then that's kind of almost a part of your DNA. I do think, as far as rackets and string choices, if I can use an example, let's take a Wilson Blade. It's a very popular racket, more on the control side, very thin beam. Um, doesn't do a lot for you, doesn't give you a lot of power, but players who have that faster racket head speed, they love the predictable control, the soft feel, and the comfort. Okay. Contrast that with a Babolat Pure Drive, one of the best-selling rackets of all time. You've got a racket that's very soft, thin beam, flexible, comfortable, control-oriented, and then you've got a Pure Drive, which is just awesome power, right? Just short backswing, big backswing, whatever you want. Lots of power, very crisp feel. I would argue those two rackets are both wielded by world-class players, elite level players, and they play against each other on the ATP and the WTA tour. There's not really one that's just better for everyone. It sort of applies to your skill set and kind of what you use. So I think I've mentioned this to you before, Pete. I want to see Nadal with Federer's old racket trying to play him, and I want to see Federer with Nadal's, pure arrow, and I want to see those two guys go at it with just completely diametrically opposed equipment. But I do think there's some legit differences when you get into this stuff. I think there's also folks that are trying to switch every week to the latest greatest thing, and I certainly wouldn't advocate that. I think the best thing is find the gear that's working for you, and make sure that you're working on your game. Again, these teaching pros this time of year are putting in long hours and on hot courts, but they're really adept at being able to help you find, hey, you're looking for a little bit more power. Why don't we try a couple of other racket options? And in my experience, they've been great at just sort of communicating that advice. And you can certainly check out tennisexpress.com, and we'll try to help you find what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Go to tennisexpress.com. We got about 3 or 4 more questions I want to get to. I don't want to go too much longer, over an hour. I'm just going to chime in really fast. I'm not really a tech guy, right, but I definitely think, like, I've got to find my racket. And I don't even know what I'm looking for sometimes, but then when I have the racket in my hand, I know, like, this is the racket, and I feel confident. So I do think equipment matters a lot. And then, as far as this is show, what a big, how much advancement has been the game. Being interview people like Gigi Fernandez and Todd Martin, to where Gigi says, well, the pros can't come to the net as comfortably as they used to because of all the spin and the equipment, that everything's just, they could just rip it, dip it at their feet. People couldn't do that back in the day when the equipment was different. Todd Martin said he was kind of there for the transition of the strings. He thought like the strings made the biggest difference. And people who were what he viewed as better athletes than him, like maybe faster and stronger, but not as good a ball striker as him, all of a sudden he went from beating them all the time to all of a sudden he couldn't beat them anymore because of the way the strings changed the game. So, technology is always advancing. So you don't want to be one of those players that like never tries anything and just thinks, oh, equipment doesn't matter at all. Things do get outdated. So, I think if you check in for a racket, what do you think? Like once every 3 years, maybe just kind of like look on the market for see what's out there new. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure. I think a really good time actually is when you are getting your racket restrung. Check in with your pro shop, or check in with your pro. Hey, like anything new that you think could help, or anything new, like my a lot of times when switches happen, Pete, in my opinion, is maybe when something's not going great, or gosh, my backhand return is just really letting me down. Like I don't have any confidence in it. You know, what is there something I could try? It's like, and sometimes maybe you do try a racket, and maybe you find your backhand return. Maybe you don't end up buying the racket. Maybe it was just kind of resetting, the mechanism a little bit. But I do think when you're struggling for confidence, or when you're hurting, that can be a good time to sort of approach a equipment change. I mean, look at Murray, right? Like he's inside the top 100, but he has been struggling by his lofty standard. This guy was three-time Grand Slam champ and probably top 10 for a decade easy, probably top 5 for a decade easy. And he clearly is like looking for confidence, and so I think sometimes that can be a really good thing. Now, maybe don't look for confidence in a new racket every week.
Right. I think,
uh,
what
but
do you think? Do you think it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Like what how often would you check in?
I would
Let's
say
say I buy a
inside
new
of
racket and I'm happy. Like
I'd
when's
say
the next
inside
time?
of 2 years. I'd say two
Okay.
years is a good barometer. I don't think from July 2024 to July 2025. I don't think anything earth shattering is going to change. There might be some subtle improvements, but if you set out a decade, there's going to be
Hmm.
a lot of different things that could maybe be helping your game. And I mentioned this too, Pete, but a lot of the rackets that they're making now, they're really focusing on comfort too, even the stiffer models that I mentioned. So if you are somebody that kind of is stuck with your racket that the paint's starting to chip off of, don't think that the new rackets are just about power or just about control. Like there's a lot of models that they understand that tennis players need something that's comfortable and effective for what they want to do on the court, but it's not effective for what you do on the court if you're injured and you can't play. So
Hmm.
the brands have sort of taken up that mantle of, we got to be making rackets that are arm friendly and comfortable for players so that they can keep developing their games and playing more tennis.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Got a couple more questions. We're gonna go Scott and then Britt, and then we're gonna tell you guys basically where you can go get some cool July 4th deals. I wonder where that might be. And everybody will have a great night. So yeah, just think about when you get a new cell phone, also go shopping for a racket. About every 2 years, you probably got to get a new cell
For
phone.
sure.
So anyway, Scott Levy says, any other for flat hitters? Any other recommendations for flat hitters as far as rackets?
Yeah. So flat hitters, I would say. Well, I mentioned the Wilson Blade. I think the Wilson Blade's a really good option. Scott, if you could put in the chat, like, are you taking a pretty aggressive cut at the ball, or is it, are you, a
I
little
can
bit
tell you,
more?
I know Scott very
Okay,
well. He comes to a ton of my camps. Scott is a very good player, strong 4.0, 4.5 type player. pretty good racket at speed, very good control, very stable stroke, very flat, and he goes for his shots. He does not
Okay.
hold back.
So I wouldn't sleep on the Pro Staff 97. And I wouldn't sleep on it's new in this version 14, but the Pro Staff X. So it's the same specs as the 97, not the Roger one, not the super heavy one, but it's the same specs. It's just got a 100 square inch head, so it's a little more forgiving. I'm a flatter ball hitter myself, and I loved the feel of that one. Another one for a flatter hitter, Yonex, the Percept line. Francis and Stan endorsed that line, and just the Percept 97 is a really good, kind of thinner beam, flatter hitting racket. And then the last one, I guess I'd say, would be uh, the Head Speed MP. A little bit lighter, but 100 square inch head. Notable flat hitting Yannick Sinner uses a speed on tour, so he enjoys pulverizing the ball with that.
Cool. Good stuff. Scott said absolutely correct. I nailed his game. Okay.
Nice.
All right. How is the Radical MP for comfort on the arm? I've had 2 head rackets in my past and feeling sad with both.
So, arm friendliness scale for head rackets. The number one I'd say would be the Gravity series. You've got your heavier Pro, MP, a couple of other models, but that's very arm friendly rackets. The Radical is sort of in the middle. It's not super not super uncomfortable, not super plush, soft. It's kind of just a good middle ground. Um, yeah, and a lot of people kind of prefer a middle ground racket. But yeah, for head rackets, if you're struggling with arm comfort, it's the Gravity series for sure. For sure.
Okay, cool. All right. So, just in case you guys, what I love about Tennis Express, it's so easy to remember. Tennis Express. I wish I would have come up with something better. Some people are like, crunch time, you're the crunch coach. Like, I need to read you on my name because
I love it.
no, yeah, but people don't remember tennisexpress.com. Like, I'm writing it down there. But did I even need to do it? Tennisexpress.com, guys. You go there and you're going to have a beautiful banner of July 4th sale. So if you've been watching this and you're like, I haven't had a new racket in 2 or 3 years, maybe I should start going on a demo program, or maybe I should try a new string. All right, I just broke my string tonight and I need new strings. Go to Tennis Express. Also, you know what? It's like you got to get your summer gear. You got to get ready for the US Open. Like the US Open, I think that's like the best fashion kind of display. Is like everybody's got the new clothes. All the pros look amazing at the US Open. Start getting your US Open gear ready. That's
Yeah,
what you need to be
the
doing.
U.S. Open's kind of like Christmas. That's kind of our, and it helps with Grand Slam tennis on all day and late into the night during prime time. But it does seem like all the top brands really push out a lot of great stuff late August, early September.
hmm Well, Sam, I appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule. You are a very busy, hardworking man. Isn't this cool, guys? I mean, I'm a fan of Sam. I have seen Sam on so many commercials on TV. I'm like, I know that guy. Makes me feel cool. Like, I know Sam. There he is on TV. You guys are He hung out with you for a solid hour tonight, answering your questions. And I'm sure maybe, are you going to be in any more Tennis Express commercials coming up? Are we going to see you on TV soon?
I don't know. I got to get with my agent and see if I can book something.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool to see you on those commercials.
I
Can
do
you?
get a random text every now and again, like you're on TV, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a commercial, no big deal. But no, it's surreal for sure. 14-year-old Sam would not have thought that for sure.
Yeah, you should be getting royalties like the progressive woman. He laughs. Oh, I'm getting a text from Brad right now. Our relationship is over. No, I'm just anyway. thank you so much for hanging out. It was a pleasure as always. You're just a really great, cool guy. And I wish you and Tennis Express all the success in the world. I'm a big fan of the brand. And I've done a lot of personal shopping myself on Tennis Express. And so it's just awesome. You know, if you love tennis, you got to keep supporting the tennis. Let's just face it. We're a small community where it's a big world, but tennis is a small community. And the more we stick together, the better the sport does. Okay. And buying a new tennis racket is way more cool than buying a board that they call a pickleball. Right? Can you believe people are buying boards for $200? Like, it's just an oversized ping pong paddle. All right, I'm done.
So,
I
well, thanks for having me, Pete. I really appreciate it. And really thanks to everybody watching. Great questions as always. And I hope you're able to get out on the court soon and it's not too hot. Make sure you're drinking water out there, everybody.
Thank you guys for hanging out.